This is Alexander Moore. He leads non-fiction at Vice Media, achieving accolades in the likes of an Oscar. You know, the filmmakers Super Bowl? Yeah, that. You might recognise him from the Hollywood at Home challenge, being a really good way to get creative while stuck inside.
Okay, so how are you doing, Alex?
I am very well, thank you.
That's great. So could you give us a little insight on your role in the media industry in Vice?
So I'm the Vice President of Non-Fiction at Vice, across Vice Studios. So Vice Studios, if you don't know, is kind of, it's the like ideas center of Vice. So Vice has several outlets. It's got sort of Vice Digital, Vice News, it's got like Pulse Films, it's got like various sort of different areas where we can kind of self-publish work. But the sort of main role of Vice Studios is that we can come up with ideas that we can obviously pitch into those areas, but at the same point, you know, like take to Vice TV or whatever, but at the same point, we can also take those out to pitch in the market. So we can take them to Netflix, Disney, HBO, and so on. And so my role is to monitor and run the ideas slate for coming up with new projects for the unscripted division, effectively. So anything that isn't a drama.
That's excellent. What's your role in all that? Where do you come into that?
Well, so it's my job to effectively kind of mediate and curate and think of ideas that come through. So it tends to be sort of three areas really that I run. So one is obviously a team of people whose job it is to come up with ideas across unscripted. So it may be everything from a game show to a hard-hitting documentary to a factual entertainment program to a documentary series to a reality show, whatever, right? There's that sort of thing. And obviously what we'll do is identify potential buyers in the market. So we'll have a think like, what are Nat Geo after? What are Discovery thinking about? What's Channel 4's problem that we can solve? And we'll come up with ideas for that. So my role is effectively to manage that, to come up with ideas, to inspire the team, to shape ideas that come at us. And then another area is where we kind of reach out to third-party producers, directors, talent, and so on, and kind of encourage them to come to us with ideas. So hopefully people bring us projects. And kind of the third way into that is where we are directly solving a problem based on a brief. So we might have, a brief sent to us from Netflix where they're saying, oh, we want to target Indian market, women under 40, that sort of thing. And then you'll kind of break that problem down and then your team will generate ideas for that. So it's sort of threefold really. It's like ideas we think are cool, ideas that people bring to us that we can shape and make them cool, and people who need ideas to fill a particular slot, if that makes sense.
Yeah, that's great. What led you to the industry? How did you get there?
I've always wanted to do it, honestly, Jack. Like it's been, I sort of haven't really kind of focused on anything else. I was the person at school who was always filming everything, before there was a phone on a camera on a phone. I borrowed my dad's video camera and would film everything at school. And then at university, I went and did film and media production. And, I was sort of always kind of thinking about building a kind of idea of what I wanted to do. I didn't know whether I wanted to direct or write or whatever. And what I figured out is that I'm much better at thinking of ideas and making them happen than I am sitting on a film set and going through one particular idea. I'm much better with a suite of them. So that's kind of where I ended up.
Yeah, that's great. What's a day of work look like then for you?
Well, obviously it's pretty weird being at home, because it's kind of, your day at work is kind of slightly non-traditional across what would normally be. It's been the same routine for a while, even when I used to run Grain Media before I joined Vice. And so I'll give you a snapshot of that out of the office, and I'll give you a snapshot of what it is now. So in the office, it's kind of, a day is usually meet with your team, check in on what everybody's doing, kind of just to sort of what was everyone watching? What's everyone heard of recently? Is there a new idea circulating that we should be on? Just a kind of morning check-in. And then we'll look at a kind of cross a slate of projects where we know who our buyers are and what our ideas are. And we're constantly kind of iterating ideas and buyers. So, have we got gaps? Are there too many ideas for the same buyers? You don't want to go in there with like 5 ideas to Netflix, for example, because you end up creating a kind of pick one, not these. So actually it might be better to stagger them or think about when they could go. So there's a sort of curation angle. And then there's a kind of proactive doing part of the day, which is writing ideas up, is interacting with commissioners to figure out what's changed for them, is to let them know how work that you've been talking about is developing. Maybe it's interacting with talent who are going to be a part of it, or it's working with a researcher to figure out you need a particular answer to a story that you don't know everything about yet. Those sorts of things. And at some point in the day, maybe there'll be some kind of pitch. The only difference at home is that you don't see anyone face to face. So we kind of do everything. We try to keep as much of a sort of natural office atmosphere as possible, which is like, the morning check-in is a very important part of that. Even if you don't talk about anything useful, on the days where you do, it's really important. On the days where you don't, it's just good to know that your team are there and they can flag something if it's not important or flag something that is important. And then throughout the day, really, it's just a way of kind of staying on top of projects, constantly doing things like this, where you're interacting with either commissioners or colleagues on particular work. So, as of today, I've been working on 4 different ideas, one for ITV, one for Netflix, one for a sort of mass sale where we're sending it to our agents, WME in the US, who have got a sales plan for a documentary series. And then a new idea I'm just sort of putting together now and kind of forming the basics of. So it's a constantly changing thing, but it is all geared to really the same plan in summary, mate, which is just, have you got an idea? Yes, it needs to be thought through. It's got to be made like this for a particular buyer, and then you put it in front of them, and then it's a kind of follow-up process with the buyer working with you to make it work for their channel or not.
Yeah, that's excellent. So Vice has had hands in productions like In With the Band, I remember that one, and The Brexit Storm. Is it exciting? Did you work closely with stuff like that?
No, I didn't, because I mean, it's obviously Vice has done some amazing stuff. Vice Studios, I think, did like the Fire Festival documentary on Netflix, and they did like the Jim and Andy Netflix doc, and the Satanic Verses and stuff like that. And they're all amazing. I haven't worked on them because I only joined Vice in August, and those things were already out there in the world. So I'm sort of yet to get any reflected glory for Vice projects. But my stuff is kind of all the new stuff that's coming on down the line next. So you won't really see a kind of fruit of my work for about another sort of 6 to 12 months before things start to come through and start to be on screens,
Yeah. So
but the brand is amazing. The brand is amazing. It's really interesting to work at a company with such an identifiable brand, even though, because like I said, you've got the projects that go out on Vice, and then you've got the projects that you can make as Vice for other people, like your Netflixes and so on. And that is a really interesting place to be, because people expect a certain quality or style or journalistic integrity and so on from Vice. And there's obviously that for Vice, but then there's obviously that for everybody else, and you've got to figure out what that brand is and what it means when it's plugged into those different areas. So it's a fun brand to work on, definitely.
That's great. I suppose the golden question: how did your career and then now Vice? How did that all lead to the Oscars?
Well, I didn't get the Oscar. The Oscar launch hasn't come through Vice. I did that at Grain. So, so I used to run Grain Media, and I joined them. I've been working on various projects. I used to work at the BBC. I used to run children's BBC development, and various. Zodiac and 2-4 and various places, and you just sort of build up a kind of cross section of experience from how to develop for kids, how to develop for kids and family, how to develop for adults, how to develop around like a major piece of talent all the time. It's like you start to build up these sort of experience. And then, but underpinning all of that is like how to spot a good story and how to move a story on. And the Oscar thing happened because we were very fortunate. We had a brilliant director who was the owner of Grain, who brought me on to be the CEO. And my job really was to, help funnel ideas and shape them the same way I do at Vice now, but shape ideas and help them get in front of the right commissioners, help them get the right level of kind of attention, and always putting the right filmmakers, the right producers, the right editors, and so on around particular projects, so that it had the best possible chance of doing well in the market. And we just had some amazing people at Grain who could do that. And so it was just a small team of, I think we were like 18 at our biggest, taking on some really massive hitters in documentary. And over my time at Grain, which was 4 years, we won 2 Oscars. So we were every other year we were in the Oscars, and we had a win, which is sort of an insane track record. And it was just because I think we like figured out how to kind of maximize our team and get it in front of the right people, and then figure out like how to get attention on it, how to build up like a campaign around it, how to get a network excited about a project they had. The things that we won, it was Netflix's first Oscar, it was A&E Networks' first Oscar that we won last February. And so it was, in both times, kind of, we were like working with the networks, like figure out how to do it, because they didn't, at the time, they didn't have like a well-trodden path in that. Now they're both like seasoned. I mean, Netflix particularly are like amazing at taking projects they know they want to get behind and launching them in the market and building an amazing campaign and so on. I mean, every year they have loads of projects now, but it was just really cool to be there at the beginning of that.
That's excellent. Obviously this is mainly for university production, but otherwise, if I could steal anything from you, do you have any advice for young filmmakers out there wanting to get into the industry?
I do actually. So major one is, while you're at university, obviously it's very tricky at this time. Now you've got to do everything remotely and so on. But when you can finally get your hands on equipment and you can work with people and film stuff and so on, try to build a portfolio of work that you can show that you genuinely feel is going to be representative of stuff that you want to show in the market. So for example, it's unlikely, I think, while you're at university, that anyone will sit through a 40-minute film, or even a 20-minute film. It's just long. I would be looking at kind of how can you maximize a 10-minute window or a 5-minute window with something, so that you can, people can watch your work and not kind of skip through it and miss the good stuff. You know what I mean? Like, try to condense it down. If you want to work in commercials, make some commercials. If you want to work in documentary, do that. If you want to be in scripted, do that. It's like, I just think my advice for people, if you're looking seriously at unscripted, is go for unscripted. Like target that stuff, and it's built on some fairly simple principles. One, watch a lot of stuff that's out there. Like, know, what does contemporary unscripted filmmaking look like? And my summary of that is this: one, it's like really strong characters, and two, a really strong unfolding present tense story. Like, if someone comes to you and tells you a story about an amazing thing that happened to someone 10 years ago, sometimes they're amazing. You hear these things, you're like, wow, God, that person went through everything, went through hell and did this amazing story. They are amazing fodder usually for scripted projects, because you don't have any archive, you don't have any ability to show that in an unscripted way. You almost have to script it to show the drama. So those projects tend to fall well into scripted. However, an unscripted version of that is like, well, what's the challenge now? Is that person going back? Maybe that person going back to see their kidnapper, or maybe that person is trying to reunite after being separated for however long, or maybe that person is whatever, you know. It's kind of the backstory is a jumping off point for what you do next. So when you're making unscripted, it's like, what's the present tense? That yes, there's an amazing story, but what now? You know, so I always think about that, like there's retrospective and there's present, and that's a big thing. And I guess, and the other thing is to be constantly out there in the market as a talent. So to be, you know, the reality is, thank God, long gone are the days, I think, where just because somebody famous wants their kid to be in the industry, they get a job in. I mean, that used to be definitely the case. And I think it's really nice to see that nepotism has moved out of the industry a long way. And that now the way in is, now it's way more, it's very competitive, but I think it's way more based on what you can actually do, because really people want young, clever, you know, multi-skilled ideas. They want talent. Like, as a young person, you have an advantage that people don't see who are in the industry for a long time, and that's simply being young. So like you have a link to an audience that an older commissioner or filmmaker doesn't actually understand naturally. They have to work hard to figure it out. So you're bringing in that. So as a person trying to come into the industry, use that, lean into that. Like you have a USP there that somebody else doesn't have. So when you're thinking about building a portfolio, when you're thinking about representing yourself, when you think about ideas that you can be useful in that area, how are you making the most of being a young person, if that makes sense?
That's excellent. And sadly, all we've got time for, but I really do appreciate it. You've helped loads, got some really good insights on the industry and what you do. That's Min. Thank you.
Oh, you're welcome. Well, listen, best of luck and thanks for reaching out. It's nice to talk to you, and let me know if there's anything I can do to help in the future. It's a real pleasure.
Thanks so much. That's brilliant.
All right, thanks, man.
Thanks.
Speak to you soon.
Take care. See you.
Okay.